Month 2, August 2022, OBX. It was the perfect moment to explore. The sleep had done Aidan Drummond well, and he had returned to Tanny Hill the morning after the party. Ward Cameron had not been long in the ground, and his children were hosting social events. Aidan looked around, at the prone bodies asleep on the lawn, beside the pool, around the perimeter of the house, and sneered. Too rich even to find a bin for their drinks bottles, Rafe Cameron had employed people to clean up that morning, Aidan being one of them. As he toured the grounds, with 3 other teens employed to do the same job, Aidan pushed aside unconscious limbs that were disguising waste packaging, drinks bottles, cigarette ends, food trays, broken glass, and put his mind to diligently cleaning up everything he saw, the detritus filling up a black bag in about 5 minutes. "Take your time," one of the other youths told him. He was black and broad, and Aidan watched as he took his bag as easily as if it had been empty, and throw it into a dumpster. "You're paid by the hour, not by the job." Cameron Jr., he nodded towards the main window of Tanny Hill House, "will probably tell us to go no matter what we got done, in a couple of hours." Aidan nodded, and proceeded to go round back with the young man, whose name was Raymond, where the job would probably be lighter, Raymond calling his intention over to Mr. Henry's, who waved a hand from his shed, but was probably reading Sports Illustrated and drinking from a hip flask. As long as the job got done quickly, he didn't care. While Aidan welcomed the thought that would ease his burden, inwardly he felt cross. He had planned to race through the tidying up and go and see what was needed to be done indoors, indoors being an excuse to get to grips with the geography of the inner office, where he was sure more information regarding the Blackbeard mystery would be found. "Thanks," Aidan said to Raymond, and took up a couple of bags, agilely making his way around the rich cook teens. "You from round here?" Raymond asked, retrieving a plate of what once might have been pizza from the pool using a net. The plate had sunk and the pizza slices had joined it, having got extremely soggy for their plunge in the pool. Aidan went over to help. "For the moment," Aidan replied, in his faux accent. "Come here for the water, stayed here for the anonymity." "Haven't we all?" Raymond told him. His father owned charter boats too, like the Brookses, but Mr. Hamilton hired fishermen to take the boats out and taught people to fish. From the look of how Raymond Hamilton was cleaning up, he was clearly skilled pulling things out of the water. Soon, people were stirring, staggering round and wobbling as the next day after benders of all sorts were reckoning with fragile heads. A boy nearly knocked him into the pool, but Aidan managed to steady himself. "Not too much dirt in it," he reasoned. He shouldn't be asked to clean it out again too soon, although the filter would probably be clogged, and he told Raymond this. "All right, Mr. Do-Good," Raymond teased as he took both their bags. "You do that and I'll tell Henry's." "I wonder what we'll be doing that afternoon." "Something inside, I hope," Aidan said, glancing up to the sun, which promised to be a scorching day. He was sunburned enough. But that wasn't the reason, of course, and he got his wish. A beam had come loose in the attic of the house and Henry's had asked for a volunteer to go up the indoor ladder and into the loft space to do a brief survey. A brief survey, Henry's had told them. Raymond and the 2 other youths and looked around, disinterestedly. They wanted the job of painting the rowing shed, in the outdoors, finish when they wanted, away from watchful eyes, where they could drink the purloined cans of beer and anything else they had swiped from that morning's clear-up. "I'll do it," Aidan told Mr. Henry's. "It's getting too hot for me," he added, wafting a hand hopefully close to his face. "All right then," Joe Henry's told them, keen to take the path of least resistance. "You 3, out to the boathouse. You, Drummond, the loft." And when the other 3, Raymond waving some beers surreptitiously behind the caretaker's back, were well on their way to the shoreline, Aidan took the plans of the house that Henry's had given to him on a clipboard, showing him how to mark where any damage might be. "Look at every single beam," he told Aidan. "They got money, that's no issue. It's got to be done right." "You can count on me, sir," Aidan told him. HW was to go into the attic and look at every single beam, marking in the plans exactly where any faults were and bring it back to him. 88,888,888. It took a much shorter time than Aidan had expected, which was good because the plans showed Ward Cameron's office clearly marked, and a way that it could be accessed from the roof. Plans clearly annotated. He pulled the ladder up behind him into the roof space and closed the ceiling door behind him, effectively locking himself in. He would have to remember this place whenever he needed some peace and quiet, some coolness away from the heat of the day, for the loft was cool and out of the way, and it tempted him to stay now. No, Aidan told himself sharply, and reminded himself of his objectives. 1. Ibra Charles Blackwood. What had he got to do with Blackbeard? Was there even anything in the drinking from his skull rumor, or was that a baseless legend? 2. Blackbeard's treasure. If it existed, surely it would have been found by now. No tourist information even alluded to treasure. In fact, most said he had debt and depleted funds. Why would he have put himself in such danger of capture by killing his crew off, rather than share the plunder? Even Israel Hands, who had been as close to Edward Teach as any piratical colleague could have been. He needed men to sail the ships, so it made no sense to reduce his number. 3. Aidan's Queen Anne Sovereign. Was it a plant, a device used to tell a story? Or was it, as Aidan had believed from his adopted father, truly his ancestor Blackbeard's? 4. Was there even a 4? Crawling to the place over Ward Cameron's office, knowing he just had to crawl down another loft hatch, his mind thought about 4. It was that which was more on his mind now than anything else. Aidan's mind paused as a noise below him got his attention. The office door had opened and Rafe Cameron had entered, closing it behind him, and turning the key. Aidan glanced through the gap in the lock hatch and saw Rafe lock the opposite door, before putting a hand to his face as if trying to think. Then, he stepped to the window and glanced out to the lawn. Aidan suspected that he was watching the guests depart from wherever it was they had fallen the night before. Heart beating in his chest, Aidan then watched as Rafe pulled aside the picture of Denmark Tanny, behind which a silver metal safe blinked security lights. Rafe tapped in a few numbers, which caused the door of the safe to spring open, and he pulled the door open wider and peered inside. Aidan could not see what was inside from the angle he was at, and he shuffled in the ceiling, causing a scrape. Rafe froze and looked up. Cursing his luck, Aidan forced himself still, and Rafe scanned the ceiling, as if doing so would make it transparent, or something, and he would be able to detect the source of the scraping. And then Rafe leaned forward again and placed whatever he had removed back inside the safe, closing the door behind him, before walking to the door through which he had come, turning the key and striding out. Waiting for what seemed like an age, until the shadow moved across the wall, and until his heart steadied in its beating, Aidan dared to click the loft hatch latch, swinging his legs over the side and then lowering himself through. One of the bookshelves was high enough to get to, and he pushed the hatch closed before swinging his legs off the bookshelf and onto the thick pile carpet, his Converse-clad feet making no noise as he dropped. Aidan could not get the safe undone, however much he tried with the combination, and he had a suspicion that if he tried too many times an alarm might sound. Damn it, he thought, stepping back, before trying the desk drawers. The bottom one yielded to his tug where the other ones were stuck fast, locked, Aidan concluded, and were stuffed full of tax receipts. Well, what had he expected? For clues toward Cameron's involvement with Blackbeard to just be lying about, just waiting to be picked up. As he turned to go, through the same door Rafe had left through, a flash of white caught his eye. Down the side of the drawers, to the side of the desk, a little piece of paper was wedged. Aidan stooped, and then teased at the corner of the paper, hoping that it wouldn't tear. It didn't, and what Aidan had thought to be a small slip turned out to be an envelope, and on further inspection, a letter inside. A noise outside made Aidan jump, but he had read enough to know that Mr. Hall had been telling the truth, and he pulled the letter into his pocket, looking to the door. 88,888,888. They had things sorted, Now they were back at the OBX. The El Dorado treasure had been verified, his father's name exonerated. Sarah's, however, that was different. He had admitted to killing Sheriff Peterkin, and had been a fugitive. Now, they spent their time at Tannehill and at the surf shop, at a kind of truce, an impasse, with Rafe, not interacting very much, not getting in each other's way. The party had been wild, so they had been glad to slip off to JJ's house and have a breakout of their own. It was just a pity that his best friend had continued with his feud with one of the young men who worked for Rafe. But it had been funny about the gold. It had seemed like a rare coin, and the boy had been loath to part with it. "Don't worry about me," John B. had said to Sarah, after the heat of the fight had passed and they were chilling on the beach as JJ mixed the drinks. She had asked him if he felt angry about his father's legacy. "My father is gone, happy he found the gold, after everything. I best everyone think well of him, that he was right. Didn't you ever get to think about why it was Horace Limbury was transporting all that gold in the Royal Merchant?" Pope had asked, idly. "Yes, it came from Venezuela, but what if the Limburys' fortune did not come from slavery? What if the family knew about Blackbeard's treasure?" "You mean?" John B. put in. All had stared at him. "It was not what I meant," Pope said, slowly. "You're not on about that again, John B.?" JJ asked. He had looked across to his friend. "You were the one who gave me the coin, on the chain, that belonged to the Drummond kid," John B. replied, plaintively. Captain Limbury was a humble captain of a merchant ship in the 1840s, and then suddenly, bam, rolling in it. Like what? Kiara had asked. "Blackbeard," John B. told them, slowly as he got to his feet and began to talk to them all. Edward Teach. He had gold, indigo, spices aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge. He blockaded Charlestown, not because he wanted to cause havoc, but because he wanted medicine for his crew. He took prisoners, the townspeople, and they were released unharmed. I say they wanted time to unload it. "Unload what?" JJ had asked, pausing mid-swig of bourbon. "The gold. It's not lost at sea, or buried anywhere," John B. told them. He had put it somewhere safe, in Charleston, but then couldn't get back to it. The conversation was going round in John B.'s mind as he and Sarah got to the top of the stairs. They were going up to find Rafe, but found instead Aidan Drummond coming out of their father's study. "What are you doing here?" Sarah demanded as the boy, taken aback, looked between them both and froze in the act of closing the door behind him. "Taking a survey," Aidan told her, which was the truth, in any case. "Oh yeah, sure." And Sarah went on about how he had been disrespectful to Key, and "Don't you know she's a person, not a piece of meat to be bartered with?" "Key," Aidan repeated, setting a smirk across his features. "Lovely lass, shame I didn't get to meet her properly, if you know what I mean." "You got your gold," John B. pointed out, diffusing the situation smoothly, as the sovereign chain glinted in the midday sun coming in through the skylight windows. "And you seem to know a lot about this," Aidan told John B., boldly, taking out the sovereign and letting it glint in the light. "Blackbeard's treasure." John B.'s eyes rested on the coin. Aidan attempted, ignoring, as John B. seemed to have ignored, Sarah Cameron's loud sigh of exasperation that her husband had not taken Aidan Drummond to task over his attitude towards Key, and, by extension, all women. "I really was taking a survey," Aidan called after her, and then showed John B. the markings he had made of the whole of the roof beams of Tannehill. "That's okay," John B. told Aidan, who shivered, as he remembered what was in the letter he had in his pocket. "You're not from here, are you?" Aidan stared back, refusing to say anything. He didn't trust that his mouth would not come out with a Bristolian accent. So he just stared at John B., and the staircase, down which he needed to go to get out. I'd give the house plans to Joe Henry's, go out and leave, and go back to the boat hire. But John B. was not getting out of the way. "Look, I'm not going to help you with a thing unless you level with me," John B. told him, and, to his surprise, Aidan answered him. "I am." Aidan looked across to John B., but couldn't say anything. "For one thing, There were strict laws in America about illegal migration. Instead he held up the coin. John B. looked down at it, distracted for a second. Looking past his brother, Aiden ran. 888,888,888. So what you're saying is that there should be no challenge over Ward's money? Rafe Cameron had contacted his lawyer, a short, bossy man, who was also the best in the business. If another sibling challenged the inheritance, sitting at the desk, through which Aiden had rifled, not half an hour before, Rafe had decided to be blunt. He owed their debtors a large sum, and it would not do if someone showed up asking for it. What about the Limbri money? Who? Yes. Fine. Okay then, bye. Rafe put down the phone, and then sat back on the leather-covered chair. Fuck. The Limbri business was more secure than he knew. Even the stepson got not a whisper of that. Even though she was a natural-born daughter of Carla, all Mason Lester could say was that she wasn't getting a penny, either. Oh, yes, one more thing. She was here, in the area. Mr. Hall, the Limbri solicitor, had had a meeting with her. But, didn't he already know that? He had had Barry follow her. A knock at the door, and there was Barry, pawn shop owner and local drug dealer, who had done the following: $50K. That's what we agreed, country club, Barry told him. But Rafe just waved a hand at him, and handed him money in it, and dropped it towards him. 100, and that as an advance, Rafe told him. I want you to do another job for me. He was not surprised when Barry gave him a suspicious look. What now, man? He complained. This man, Rafe gave Barry Ortego a piece of paper, Renfield Limbri, has business interests with me. Only he doesn't know it yet. Barry looked up from the pile of banknotes. I ain't killing for you again, country club, the reprobate told him. So, I will not be taking money from you again for a job, not for this Renfield, and certainly not for the life of a kid. He broke off when he saw the gun in Rafe's hand. Don't ever question my motives, Rafe told him, coldly. After a pause, Barry Ortego waved a hand and gathered up the dollars. Why, what has this kid done to you? THR's my business, he told him, before seeing him down the back stairs and out of the Tannehill house via a boat tied up at the private jetty. It took most of the day and the evening to get his head sorted out. Charleston again, and the Limbri estate, if the clues told him right. A proposition to Renfield. But the boy, Drummond, he was nowhere to be seen. The next day, he confronted Sarah. He was speaking to John B., Sarah told her brother, airily. Her face fixed when she saw his expression. That lowlife? You mean my husband? And you would know about lowlifes, Rafe. She folded her arms. What do you want with him, anyway? Him you your dropout friends cost me a good worker. Rafe glared at John B., and then when his supposed brother-in-law said nothing, he added, your little friend beat him up again? Why? John B. shifted in on the sun-dappled patio. Because he hasn't turned up for work this morning and yesterday, Rafe growled. He was last seen running away from the Maybank mansion on the cut, with gunshots ringing after him. Sarah went pale and he turned to his sister. Now it's your turn to say, he said to Sarah in mock imitation. Oh no, JJ would never do a thing like that. His voice was shrill, mocking. She was not the only one to lose a parent. The death of Ward Cameron weighed on his chest too. Perhaps that was why they were all living back at Tannehill together, the grief they shared but would never talk about. Louisa and Rouse, when they weren't in Aruba, lived in Ward's mansion on the mainland, diluting their own suffering with expensive shopping trips and beauty treatments. Not that it mattered, Ward had left enough money to keep them both for life. But Rafe worried about his little sister, with Rose keeping her from school and by her side as a kind of companion, to neutralize the acid sting of death. He's not dead, Sarah told her brother without much conviction. Yeah? Then why was a gold sovereign coin found by your friend? Why was an empty gun discovered at your little friend's house? What are you talking about? Sarah asked. He was here this morning. He was doing the survey of the house that Henry's asked for. Rafe glowered to his sister and then towards John B. The gold coin, Rafe pressed. Do you have it now? He was here, John B. told Rafe, calmly. Perhaps he's gone back to where he stays. the Brooks boat hire. But Rafe shook his head. Aidan Drummond. He's not who he says he is. He is here not out of accident, but out of choice. What do you mean? Sarah asked. Why would he be here? Gold, Rafe told them. Gold, and our money. So I had to have it sorted. But you, he turned to John B., have gone and ruined it. Tell me exactly what happened. Why? Sarah demanded to know, stepping in front of John B., confronting her brother. After everything, after Sheriff Peterkin, after Gavin, after our father. For the good of us all, Sarah. Well, I think I need to know a little more than that. And she watched her brother look across to John B., a curious look in his eye. Blackbeard. It was not Rafe but John B. who said the name. It was a matter-of-fact statement, with no guile, no accusation, but also with none of the excitement that any of their past gold hunting missions had sparked in him. I am not going to kill him, Rafe rolled Sarah. Aidan Drummond is going to help us restore our fortune. 88,888,888. What was that about? The good of us all, John B. asked, as they hurried to the wreck. He would be there, and they could find Pope and Cleo, and then JJ. I don't know, Sarah told him. But he did not laugh when you mentioned Blackbeard. I mean, Blackbeard. Come on, Sarah told John B. You think it is crazy, but you believed me when my father went missing. The watch turned up, and with it, the lighthouse, and the map and the well. Sarah stopped walking and turned to face him. CM on John B. Listen to yourself, a legend. The 100 years old and a drifter with a chain and a gold coin. I bet it's not even real. It was real, John B. told her. I could tell. From the weight it's not as if we don't have enough experience. I knew there was something he was keeping secret. There's probably plenty of bums taking casual work on figure 8. I heard him talking once. No American accent that I've ever heard before. He's foreign? Sarah put her hand to her mouth in mock astonishment. Probably here illegally, John B. pointed out, because he had heard Aidan Drummond speaking on the telephone near the beach once, as he lurked, waiting to use it. British, definitely British. Then that'll be it. Blackbeard. Sarah shook her head and began to walk towards the main path that led down the coast. CM on I said we would meet Kia 2. 88,888,888. Aidan had walked nearly 5 miles, past the Brooks' place and out towards the lighthouse before he reached into his pocket. He slumped down behind a dune, the westerly sun shining onto the sea now, and took out the letter. It was written on crisp paper, a little translucent he noticed, as the sunlight passed through the page. The hand was neat and crisp, almost typed, and he looked over the letters again as he read. My dearest Carla, I have made arrangements for a private hospital. See inside the envelope. I will never understand why you went all the way to England, but I know it is important. One day, perhaps you will love me enough to explain why. That John Routledge has left you, in a foreign country, at such a time, is unforgivable. He returned 2 days before and has been living back with Sally Price. Her child is due soon, too. They will be half-siblings. When you are delivered of your child, Clara, I beg that you return, if not to me, but to your home, and rest. Others can carry on the hunt for Blackbeard's treasure. A Mr. and Mrs. Drummond have been recompensed well in order to take the child. They have no children of their own and the child will be safe. Know that I love you and I will always love you. Know that, should you say the word, I will leave Serena and be at your side. Ever yours, Ward. Aidan Drummond held the letter close. Why it was important to him, he could not say. He had found out as much from the solicitor. It did, however, confirm the man who was his father, John Routledge, and his half-brother, therefore, was John B. The sun sank a little lower as Aidan walked back. He did not fancy sitting alone in the tiny room of the Brooks house, waiting until dawn. He had to do something, as well as avoid the teens. Of course, as he got up, a couple of dollar coins rolled out. He caught them, and held them in his hand. Then he made a mistake, as his heart bade him to use them. Morn minicabs, said the voice on the other end of the line. Local journey? Oh, yes, hi, Aidan said to the secretary. "Is that Mrs. Morn?" "Speaking, Mrs. Morn," Doogie's mum replied. "And who is this calling, please?" "May I speak to Doogie, please?" The last time Aidan had spoken to Doogie's mum was when they arrived back so late one night that it was almost dawn of the next. "Douglas is not here at the moment. Who shall I say is calling?" Aidan felt his heart beating, yet he wanted his friend to know he had called. "Aidan Drummond," Aidan replied, and then hung up, throwing the receiver back into the cradle, and running as fast as he could away from the phone box and along the waterline until he got to the boat hire marina.